Did you get? Are they all different?
Yeah, well, trust me, we were intimate with these cards today.
Very, yeah. We lined them all up. We went through the checklists and everything.
It would be kind of nice if, like, in that like box of them, you could just get like a whole little like sliver of paper that's like, in this you could get
it. Yeah, that's the checklist, Pat.
Oh, so you have that?
Have you never trading cards?
Not since like the early 2000s.
They haven't changed.
Cool. I don't remember the checklist even then, so I don't know. Maybe I'm behind the curve.
Yeah, I mean, I've never done trading cards. This is my first real experience into them. So
I'm so sorry.
What do you mean? This is a great experience. This is what kind of is getting me into it right now.
Okay, well, true. There you go. Hell yeah. This week we're talking about, what are we talking about, Pat? Tell us, inform us.
That's gonna be the Kandahar Giant, or the Giant of Kandahar.
As I'm discussing this.
Say what?
Would you believe, as he's discussing this, Michael's looking up Giant of Kandahar trading cards?
Oh my God. I don't think that exists, but you guys could make it a thing.
But now I might. Now the fact that the first thing that pulled up was Crypto Wiki, I know this is going to be real legit, Pat.
It is pretty legit. And let me just tell you why. Let's break it down.
Please explain unto me why.
All right. So we're talking about the Giant of Kandahar. But first, let's learn about where Kandahar is. Afghanistan.
Timely.
Exactly. I know that was this was unplanned. The proximity
when
to
this happens
event
and a Pokemon episode has an earthquake in it, and there's an earthquake, they cancel the episode, and it never happens.
I heard about that.
Did that really happen?
Yeah, that really happened.
It was like an
episode with Wish Cash and stuff that never occurred.
They got all like tripped out,
like the earthquake in the early 2000s. Anywho, keep going. Kandahar.
Okay. Yep. Kandahar. Well, specifically Afghanistan. No. Luckily for us, Afghanistan is nestled between 6 other countries. Can you name those countries? Without looking it up on
Pakistan.
Yep, that's one.
Iran. Syria.
Nope.
Turkmenistan.
Yes.
Turkmenistan. Nice.
Yeah.
He's looking up on a map.
Because as I'm doing the research, there's a map of Afghanistan.
I'm glad that he can do that though, because I can't.
The research,
unbelievable. It also borders Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and China. Anyway, but yeah, so over the years, obviously, this place has been a hotbed of falling and rising empires. Like the Persians, the Greeks made their way through there. Alexander the Great, the Macedonian
people been through this country like a chief
emperor or whatever he was. Anyway, so the region where this country sits is made it like a really historical and strategic territory forever, and is basically a big channel into most of the Asian interior from, I guess, Europe and the Middle East. It's surrounded by the Eurasian steppe, the Indus Valley, and the Hindu Kush Mountains, with Iran to the west. Needless to say, Afghanistan is a very spicy area. So,
needless to say,
the population is made up of ethnic Pashtun peoples and various other ethnic groups from the Eurasian continent.
Did you say ethnic pasteurized people?
Ethnic Pashtun.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. Sorry, no, it genuinely like on my end, so I had no idea what you said.
Well, that's the problem with Zoom. One day I'll get this back, flesh and blood, But the area we'll be focusing on will be the province of Kandahar that also has a city of the same name. Now,
related to Shadow of Mordor. I'm currently playing through that.
You fucking guys are my favorite. This is
why this
Kandahar podcast has been such a success. I just come in here and you just fucking, before I even get anything out, I'm just cut off at the knees.
I mean, you already, okay, never mind. I'll stop.
Anyhow, okay, so most of the area of Kandahar is going to be a lot of like desert plains, but up towards the north and western sides of it, it's going to have the tendrils of the Hindu Kush coming down at it. So we've got really flat plains meets super steep mountains. This means that the steep mountains of the Hindu Kush are filled with numerous naturally occurring cave systems. These caves have been made famous, obviously, by insurgent groups and terrorist organizations that use this network of caves to get to and from Pakistan, essentially. So why is all this necessary for the setup? Well, let's begin with the story.
Has this been eating the Taliban or something?
We'll find out. Our story begins in an unknown mountainous area of Kandahar province, circa 2002. So according to a majority of sources, it all began with either an army squad or an army unit that failed to return from a patrol during, patrol.
I hate it when I failed to return from patrol while on patrol.
Of course. So a special operations task unit was then sent out to the last known location of the men. The terrain was steep, rugged mountains with craggy spurs and very little vegetation for cover. I have in my notes show image of types of mountains in Kandahar. I will not be doing that.
Share?
Oh, okay.
I could try and screen share, but I don't currently have any pictures of Kandahar on this. So that's how that's going to go.
I have
anyway,
this in the script, but I didn't do the thing, so we don't have that.
That's how it goes. Hey, Jesse didn't even fucking show up, so I don't know what you expected me to do. Somehow the special forces.
I think he's got me there.
Somehow the special forces found a narrow trail leading up the spine of a mountain. Continue along that. They were following what they thought was a goat path, but they were expecting to be ambushed by Taliban forces near these cave systems. The trail finally crested and ended right at the mountain of a dark abyssal cave. All around the clearing of the entrance, there was basically like a horror story. There was pieces of bone matter, uniforms, military communications equipment. And of course, so the special ops guys are like, what the fuck's going on? They walk up to the edge of the, I guess there was like a cliff or a precipice right before the mouth of the cave, and they kind of dispersed out, expecting to be ambushed right around there. These guys were all carrying what they said were M4s, 308/7.62 recon carbines, and Barrett 50 cals, which is a bit odd, I think, as far as armaments for special forces. Maybe not.
It's very odd to have a Barrett on any sort of like mobile unit.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because I'm like, okay, M4s maybe, just because that's like, standard. But then they have these 308 and 7.62 recon carbines, which they said were like sniper rifles. And then the Barrett 50, like, I don't know why the hell you're going to be dragging one of those around, because that's like a sniper /
that's an
anti-tank
anti-vehicle,
rifle. Yeah.
anti-armor.
So, and also I listen to a lot of like military like stuff all the time, and they are always like talking about how you always need to bring like a 240 or like a saw or any type of like machine gun is like basically necessary if you're going out into the field, so you can lay down fucking suppressing fire and shit. But yeah, so that is one thing that kind of seems sus. But as we go along, as the guys are all like posted outside of the cave, hey, I'm just giving you the facts. But the guys are all sitting there. Man, this is gonna be a blast. Why don't we introduce Truman? Truman, come say hi.
Yeah, he can't hear.
Yeah, that's the sound of the guys getting murdered.
Yeah.
No, that's them playing Rocket League. That's why they got killed by the giant.
That was a scream of horror. Oh man.
The terror, the giants of Kandahar.
But as these guys are all standing outside the entrance, a 12 to 15 foot man monster charges out of the cave and immediately spears one of the front guys in the unit that
With what?
Little,
Like a spear?
with a giant spear.
Ah,
So
okay.
yeah.
Gun's one true weakness: a giant spear.
So yeah, apparently without warning, it just sets upon him. Spears one of the guy.
Oh man, they don't
as he
train
goes
us for
over.
spears in the military.
So yeah, immediately these guys apparently sprang into action and just began to unload onto the creature. But apparently it took them, it said the whole incident took around 30 seconds. So they were just constantly unloading into this creature as it was running after the rest of them. Just 50 cows and
Is this the part where they
7.62
get put in a
rounds.
sleeping bag and carried back to the family of the giant?
How, Austin?
I'm just asking.
I bet you will.
I'm using my previous knowledge of giants and Bigfoot.
But yeah, so the whole incident took around 30 seconds to transpire. The special forces were able to kill the creature by concentrating fire on the face. So upon examination of the giant, they found that it was even stranger than they thought. Apparently, this creature had, long shoulder-length red hair, 6 digits on its hands and its feet, and even a second row of teeth.
Okay. What kind of teeth?
So 2 rows of teeth.
What kind of teeth?
Essentially human teeth, just regular teeth.
So omnivore teeth?
Yeah, I assume. I don't know.
But in the desert.
Just a second row of teeth. Apparently it was clothed in the hides of goats or some kind of animal.
It's just weird that if they found a whole new species, they wouldn't take note of what kind of teeth it had.
Well, I think that they think it's a man. But anyway, in classic U.S. military fashion, the giant is then loaded and taken into a giant helicopter and airlifted to what they say was a base for a C-130 to take it away to another base, and it never got seen again.
Good.
So essentially a special forces unit that was sent out to find a missing army squad came across a creature that was about 12 to 15 foot high, wielding a giant spear, 6 fingers and toes.
This is my favorite quest in Morrowind that I'm playing with my strategy guide, Michael Moxsmith.
Yeah,
where you go and find the 16-foot whatever giant in the cave, and then you kill it.
Extra toes and fingers.
Yeah.
So they kill it. They're
so
like,
when's this story from?
What do you mean this story? This story is what happened to a special forces unit in Afghanistan. Yeah.
When?
In 2002.
Okay.
The year was 2002. No comment?
I was waiting for
No, I was just curious about what time period this was. Have we found any other double-jawed, extra-digited mountain giants since?
There may be others.
Okay, what'd they do with the body then?
That's the thing. Apparently, it was put onto a C-130 and flown to an unknown location for study. Now, the good news is we have two eyewitnesses and one kind of, I guess, corroborating story, if you want to call it that.
Probably not.
Yeah, you don't want to call it that. So
not really.
The story was brought to the attention of a gentleman named L.A.
Chapo?
No, L.A. Marzulli, who presented his story with a gentleman that he called the shooter, who was apparently one of the special forces guys who was actually there at the time of the attack. And it's in his film.
About the giant? You're going to have to talk to the shooter.
It's a film series called Watchers 10 that it was a part of. And then he also has on another special ops contractor named Mr. D. But the shooter's name, it's funny because they have the shooter's name is also known as Mr. K. So we have Mr. K and we have Mr. D. And then we also have the third, which is considered an eyewitness account, It was a gentleman who called in who claimed to be a part of the flight crew for the C-130 that took the actual giant's body away. And he was on Coast to Coast with George Norrie or Stephen Quayle, one of the two. But George Norrie was one of the ones who talked to L.A. Marzulli about it. And I actually have a video for you guys to watch.
Like, so you didn't get still photos of Afghanistan, but you got a video?
Yeah, I got a video. I like videos more than I like still photos. And this will hopefully explain some stuff. I hope that you guys can hear it or that it'll even show up because it might not.
Wow, we don't even get to watch it. We just have to hear it.
Oh, no, you'll watch it. I'm trying to figure out how to make that work, though.
The meeting has been upgraded by the host and now includes unlimited minutes.
Wow.
Ooh.
I don't know how I did that.
I've always wanted unlimited Zoom.
We can stay on forever, guys.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. I hope you can hear it.
Nope.
Can't hear it?
No.
All right.
Isn't that Bob Lazar?
No, so this guy right here, this is L.A. Marzulli.
Okay, so that's marzipan.
And this is Mr. D. Yeah, I believe this is Mr. D.
The guy in the light gray hoodie is Mr. D.
Yep. All right, so here we go. Can you see the title subtitles?
Killed where they started calling this really call person at first. I didn't think of it. And then the 3 times the size of a man.
So the other guy was Mr. D and this is Mr. K?
What?
The first guy we saw was D and now this is Mr. K?
Yeah, this is, and did
his conspiracy gun.
Little
it fires
titles
in
at the bottom left. These captions are trash.
Yeah, they kind of are.
It's like clicks Columbus. We're hiking through the senior in whatever system a woman. Like, what is that? He was whatever. Basically, he's saying they're hiking through an area. Why can't I get the?
I thought they were saying they were hiking through a woman.
That's it. Right on through that lady.
TrueGeorge.com sounds like a real legit website.
It does, doesn't it?
True George. Yeah. Well, I got plenty more.
I mean, it's not false.
It's not
George.
false, George. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm more willing to trust.
Basically, the guys hadn't checked in at this point.
What is this video I'm watching? Is this like a recreation?
I think this is just random footage that he's using as a part of the documentary.
So if we keep watching, do they shoot a ginger giant?
Yep. I'm really sad that it's not like playing you guys the audio. That's dumb. But I think classic Zoom meetings.
Yeah, this is definitely better.
All right. Anyway, so yeah, then they're finding all the bones.
Their communications equipment. Wait, did this jam their radar?
No. What he said is that essentially he's like looking around and he sees like parts of like bone, and essentially he found the crew that got destroyed, but he knew it because he saw parts of like American communications equipment.
It ate everything but the radio.
Look at him. Oh my God, look at him. He's got a shield and everything, fully closed.
Holy cow. Wait a minute. Is that what we're supposed to be imagining?
Yes.
We're supposed to be imagining giant Leif Erikson popping out of an Afghanistani cave and eating and beating the crap out of
American soldiers.
You said he had 2 rows of teeth, so I'm over here thinking double-jawed monstrosity troll thing.
No,
I'm
just
supposed to be thinking,
like
welcome to the table here in the Hall of Heroes.
Oh my God! Yes.
Explain it better. Think a tall ginger Viking.
Yes, well, a tall ginger Viking is what they're encountering out here in
Kandahar. And I was already skeptical.
So he's clearly a time traveler, is what he is.
So yeah, they're
He's stuck-
saying,
he popped out of the cave. He's Ashley Williams from Evil Dead.
oh yeah, and then apparently the guy who gets speared, his name is Dan.
Isn't that though like just a cover up to like avoid using real names?
Oh yeah, muscle memory, complete. Wait,
Could you
what?
imagine having to have that conversation of telling, their significant other that your husband was killed in the active duty by a spear?
By Odin's offspring. I had so much more of like a creature in my head than just a fair-skinned ginger feller.
Yeah. As you see, he just skewers this guy and he's got him on this.
This animation is better than our whole podcast. Okay. I know I said Morrowind earlier. This is a Skyrim quest.
Yeah, see, he's like, look, it's the M308 or whatever. So they have like an M4, some sort of carbine, sniper, and a Barrett 50 cal.
Maybe because they'd had previous issues in the area and knew they might need to shoot at light armor if they hadn't heard from someone. And instead, they found Odin's aspect.
Oh, yeah. So then George Norrie apparently got on a call with L.A. Marzulli to talk about the C-130 flight crew member who apparently saw the actual body of the creature.
Here's your Lazar like
that somewhere in some secret government building there's a giant. I assume they've preserved somehow.
There's a very well taxidermied Greek god somewhere in a government basement. I know I'm swapping between religious pantheons right now, but he's living in Afghanistan. I don't really know what to think. I'm not cultured on Afghani religions and their giant fair-skinned cave dwellers.
I don't think that's one of the things they believe in Afghanistan. Like it's not one of their
not many ginger giants in Afghanistan.
I don't think that's
Afghanistan history.
So that's the thing. Apparently, giants are a part of their mythology. Can you see this? Are you looking at the article?
Yeah.
BusinessInsider.com.
Oh wow, this top line business. I can tell.
I mean, hey, that's true, right? Look, they've got
20 meters tall. That's
66
feet. That's many more times taller than the guy we're talking about.
That's what I was going to say. And then they also have like their graves are like really, really skinny, but they're really, really tall. But apparently like 80 years ago, they were running around here.
Yeah, only 80 years ago.
Not 80, but yeah. Isn't it just like
did the Nazis kill him? What?
No, there's something about this, like
a giant. I asked, perhaps a touch skeptical.
Yeah, around here they're just like talking about these, creatures that have just been a part of this mythology. Like David and Goliath. What do we got? Jesus, Truman. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
he's just loving it.
Back to the podcast.
This is any time that he plays a competitive game. When you're playing Forza with him and you hear Yahoo, this is what I hear.
That's a trip. So yeah, they've got all this going on. Oh, here's the mountains of Kandahar. These are Kandahar mountains. Kandahar.
Hey, well, that looks nice.
Right? Well, that's what it means. It's like a bunch
That's
of
where I'd go if I had drastically higher food and water needs than your average animal.
Okay, so, we've got the eyewitness accounts from Mr. K and the shooter, or Mr. K, the shooter, the same guy. And then they've also got...
Are you sure they weren't just trying to launch their sick new radio names?
We'll get into that.
It's Mr. K and the shooter.
We'll definitely get into that.
Oh, okay. Did I call the end of this story?
No, but then then George Norrie had the guy on, and he was just talking about the same thing, basically like corroborated the same info as Mr. K.
So now we have 3
Mr.
eyewitnesses.
K sounds like a guy who'd sell you ketamine outside of a show.
Yeah. Am I still? No more seeing my stuff.
Well, I enjoyed our visual segment, everyone.
Yep. So where did this seemingly originate? Well, it came to notoriety when a gentleman by L.A. Marzulli presented the story along with his witnesses in his film Watchers 10.
Okay, so it only came to light in a movie.
That is correct. Apparently, it's only been speculated. So I originally thought that it started on the internet, like a 4chan or a Reddit thread or something,
I mean, yeah, that
paranormal spook, because part of it that somebody's trying to put a little bit of historical fiction. And L.A. Marzulli and the Stephen Quayle are speculated to be slightly biased and biblical grifters of a sort, trying to lean towards creationism. And they're trying to point these guys.
Gilgamesh.
No, you mean like David and Goliath, but I feel you. They think that, yeah, this creature was the Nephilim, or they are trying to.
They're trying to say that the U.S. a single squad of military men shot God almost.
The demigod, yes. And that's why it took 30 seconds for them to kill it. It took them 30 seconds to unload 50 cals and R308s or whatever. Nope,
but they're saying all you need to kill God is a handful of soldiers and some guns.
Yeah,
a demigod. Yeah, and enough time. Of course, this definitely seems kind of wacky. And according to, where is it? I have this article here called whereilive.com. People have questioned the Department of Defense over any service members lost in 2002 with the first name Dan or Daniel. And nobody has found anything that goes along with that, except for there are 4 soldiers who go by that name. Or no, sorry, let me walk that back. In 2002
there are 4 soldiers.
There was a man with the first name of Dan or Daniel who was a part of a team of 4 soldiers.
The man with the first name of Dan or Daniel, please move your Passat. It's in the way of the loading dock.
So they did have somebody die whose name was Dan, but it's listed as a accident involving the clearance of disposal of explosives. So not speared by a giant biblical monster.
Not speared by the Nephilim, yeah.
Yeah. So that's some things that you got to take into consideration. However, now I want to kind of turn to the credible, like the sources, like the first and second hand sources. So Mr. K said that he was there, that he was a part of the special ops contractor unit that went out and did all of this. And if you actually go to the interview and you listen to him, Mr. K sounds like I would believe him, like the way that he talks about it. That was Gray
Hoodie Man, yeah.
He was that's Mr. D. Mr. D is Gray Hoodie.
Jeez, so his story is hard to follow.
I know. So Mr. K is the guy who says he was there and killed the giant. Mr. D is apparently a contractor with the special forces who was there in 2005, but had heard rumors about the Kandahar giant. And then the third guy was the guy on the flight crew. So we have those 3 witnesses. The first one, Mr. K, personally, like the way that he talks, he sounds like he definitely at least was in the military, which is kind of weird because you're like, okay, if you're in the military, why would you go out on like Mr. Marzulli's, thing and kind of get pushed into this narrative?
Nephilim.
And so this is the thing though. Mr. K never really speculates on what he saw other than it was like a really tall dude and he killed a guy and it took him like 30 seconds to kill him. He didn't really go into any detail about like thinking that it was like the Nephilim, really, or like, you know, he's like,
because he's naive.
I think he was just more like, what the fuck? But then Mr. D, I might go back to that video, but in that video, he goes on and it seems like Ella Marzulli is kind of like asking him and like baiting him. He's just like, so what do you think, all this means? Because it sounds like the Nephilim. And then he's like, well, there was like a quote in that video where Mr. D goes like,
Well, if it sounds like the Nephilim and smells like the Nephilim, it's probably the Nephilim.
essentially, yeah, let's, now let me find it. Yeah. All right, we're going back to the video.
Back to the video. Is that a thing?
But this is Mr. D talking about it.
If Jesse was here, he'd say, I'll give you the D.
Yeah. So
if it points to the Bible's accurate, they don't want it.
Yeah.
That's like a phrase that screams legitimacy to me. And then I found God, the highest value of targets.
And so this is Mr. D is the guy that I think is the liar.
Wouldn't that make Mr. K a liar as well, though?
No. So technically, this guy is just like, yeah, I was part of special forces. We were doing operations. We were doing all these things out in there. And I'm like, maybe he did. But so if you listen to Mr. K, he's talking military lingo. He's talking about like, 9 lines and medevacs, and he was telling, I don't know, he was talking about the weaponry and just like, I don't know, stuff that seems like he at least was in the military. He might not be telling the truth about that instance, but he was definitely in the military, or he had some kind of military background. Mr. D here sounds very generic. He's like, yeah, we were out, we get into firefights, and then we go back to the base, and then people would talk about this.
He sounds like Steven Seagal.
Yeah, he seems like did you say Steven Seagal?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was a black belt, but so they're going along and they're just like, he had all these extra digits. It's probably sounds like the Nephilim.
The only thing that's ever had extra digits.
So now apparently they say that it's common knowledge in the military, which is neat because I've got a buddy of mine who's a former Marine, which I'm going to add to this episode at some point, splice it together and get his take on what he thinks.
Is it common knowledge?
He's probably
going to ask him about it. Was he like, yes, the giants?
He's heard of it. I don't know how common of the knowledge it is. And I'm also curious because it said that this video or Watchers 10 came out in like 2016 when this was all going on, or when this got leaked. And my buddy was in the military from like 2014 to 2016. So it'd be interesting to see if he heard about it before, after, or what.
I feel like your buddy is either going to be like, yeah, I've heard about it, and then that's it. Or he's going to be like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, right. I mean, there's only really 2 ways you could go about it, huh?
Well, because I was,
or he could be like, yeah, no, the army shot a demigod in the desert.
Well, because I was looking up some stuff, and I found this Reddit forum where this guy was like, hey,
whoa, the army shot a demigod in the desert.
Pretty much, he's like, yo, how come nobody's told me about this or talking about this? And then somebody responded with, what? And then the guy explained, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And then they just went back and forth. And then he called him Alex Jones at one point.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Such content.
Well, I'm just saying, man. I feel like the three light researches I did were just like, no.
That's what you think. But
what
here's
do you
the
mean?
deal.
Here's
the deal. Back in 2002.
Back in my day.
No, so here's the thing. Whoever made this story up or whatever was probably there, man.
No way,
In
man.
2002, the
You're telling me there's
75th
this
Rangers,
guy-
November 2002. November 2002.
No, you're telling me there's
No,
this guy
no,
that's Mr. D and Mr. K, and one of
no.
them definitely lying, but they're
I don't know. I'm just, no. Well, it's a complex situation. Okay. You have my speculation that Mr. K definitely saw something or was a part of some, I don't know,
some.
some
Buddy
sort of
once
thing.
told me that.
He was a part of something that went down. I think that he might have shot a really tall guy.
Yeah, I'll give him that. Yeah.
So
He
This
might have
is some-
shot a really
Some
tall
feral
guy.
man living in
so
a cave.
let's talk. Yeah, let's talk about this. Okay, so we have three options, kind of. It's either it didn't happen, or it happened, but it's not like it sounds, or it was a Nephilim biblical monster.
I don't think it happened, man.
You don't think it happened?
I don't think it
leads you to
happened.
believe that
You think it happened?
I think that it might have happened, and the reason that I think it might have happened is because
Entirely because of the one guy who you think has a story that sounds
No.
somewhat believable.
well, one, it's interesting because the 75th Rangers were deployed in 2000, early or late 2002, to go take the city of Kandahar, while the other special forces were up north working with the Northern Alliance to take down basically the entire Taliban. So there was definitely special forces in that area.
Didn't
But,
you say that like it was weird that they already were just like, these are the guns we were carrying, and it was just
Yeah,
like, why would we
that
carry
is
those
true.
guns?
Well, I was
So,
just
I mean,
surprised that they didn't
I think
mention.
whoever made it up just didn't know their research about it, and they're like, what are the coolest guns to me?
Well, see, and
And then
that's yeah, that would make sense, because I was thinking the same thing, because they didn't have any. They're like, you're not carrying any sort of light machine gun, like anything to lay down like cover fire. You only have like two types of carbine sniper rifles and just regular M4s, which, although, I could imagine a massed fire killing a bunch of people really easily, a giant without a fucking machine gun, that seems kind of crazy. You know what I mean? So yes, I would agree with that, which is why it's really hard for me, because then I go to the idea that, like, just think about this, a really tribal area. What happens if there's just like some sort of freak, they're like, man, he's super tall, or he's like, and he keeps eating everything in the village. Like, we got to send him away, so they send this like tribal 13-year-old Kandaharian kid out to the mountains to fend for himself, and he finds a cave, and he lives in the cave, and he makes himself a spear, and he eats anything that comes around.
I like
And-
Michael and I's idea of it didn't happen.
I don't like that idea at all.
That takes far less.
Okay, first of all, it has to be this feral person, and then not only that, he has to grow to like extreme like growth
Yeah,
compared
but
to like
so
the rest of people.
it also isn't completely unheard of for people to be, well, like, maybe not that tall, but have you ever seen like people around that area? Like, there's like the Mongolian giants. There's like 1880s pictures of people who are just like hella tall. They're not like healthy tall, but they're like tall. So I mean, like, it's not out unheard of for people to be crazy tall, and then maybe they just embellished a little. Maybe instead of being just like a 8.5 foot person, it was a 12.5 foot person. And maybe they were inbred. Maybe that's why they've got the extra hands and feet.
But see all the
toes and-
maybes you're adding in when all we have to do is say it probably didn't happen.
Well, you can say probably
Yeah.
didn't happen. It doesn't mean it didn't happen.
But look at all of the things you have to say for it to be feasible it happened.
Well, I'm just saying these are things that still make it feasible in the
And
current
the fact
climate.
that there was like
of-
no report, the fact that there was no like,
well, yeah, they did say that the DOD denied anything of the sort.
And it's like, once
Yeah.
you get rid of the Nephilim corpse, that doesn't get rid of the Nephilim area where it's been living forever.
Yeah, I was surprised that they didn't go into the cave and like there was no story about like, well, we airlifted the
Look at all this
fucking
stuff.
thing
Look
out
at
of
the
here.
anthropological wonders that this strange giant man had hidden away in his cave. No, we kill giant man, we leave.
But I mean, hey, dude, I wouldn't want to stick around. Now, I do want to kind of touch on the red hair connection. It mentions red hair on the giant. In Afghanistan, there is this ritual among the Afghani men of dyeing their beards an orange-red color. And I was kind of looking around for like why they do this. Most of it has to do with indicating that they've taken part in or completed the Hajj, or the pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca, or it's apparently from in the Quran. It says that they need you to dye your gray hairs. So if you start getting gray hairs, dye your hair, and they use a substance that's kind of close to henna to color it. Maybe this creature was, just acting out some Islamic stuff, I'm feeling nothing from your guys.
Okay, but now,
because the last few minutes have just been you trying to validate it. It wasn't a very strong story. We could be talking about how it's a fail, man. It's an epic fail.
I needed Jesse for this one. God,
you do need Jesse
damn
for this one.
You guys are too.
That this man has like adopted, cultural, things that people do, despite living in a cave. So he's gonna dye his beard and his hair.
Hey, dude, just because he's an outcast doesn't mean he doesn't love Allah.
What if it was a bear that learned to stand upright and was using a tool?
So yeah, yeah, I will also lean that it's probably not true. I do stand by the fact that I think that at least Mr. K had some military background. Mr. D doesn't sound like he did it all.
So maybe they tried to hire some folks who were in the military to talk military about a thing that didn't happen to them.
Exactly.
And they got one guy who was actually in the military and one guy who wasn't. You see, I can make weird hypotheticals too for no reason.
No, I mean, I'm definitely down to talk about that. Let's talk about that. So you think that they came in and Marzulli's like, okay, we need...
How else are you going to push your Nephilim thing, man?
I need some connection. And then they're like, well, where have we been involved in biblical areas, perhaps?
But this isn't creationist eye for the unskeptical believer.
It is one of those things where we have tread into this, like the paranormal side of
the
woo-woo
faith-based
side.
Paranormal.
Yeah, it gets odd.
At the furthest end of, I'll give them that. Maybe they had a weird encounter, but it was not with a giant man. It was not with the Nephilim.
I won't even give them that they had a weird encounter. I'm saying that somebody made up the story, made it sound like, it was military.
Oh, no, it's definitely made up. But
no weird encounter. That this didn't even happen. Some guy was just sitting there having a Scotch whiskey at night and like, what's a good story to tell?
And then he watched Monty Python and was like, what if instead of a rabbit, it was a giant?
Well, I appreciate that skeptical eye you guys just threw my way.
I mean, it wasn't very paranormal. It was very para-religious grift.
Sounds like Bigfoot.
That's what Mr. D first thought it was. He chalked it up to a Bigfoot story.
In a cave, though. I don't know about that.
You don't think that Bigfoots live in caves?
Bigfoots are already on the fence for me, so...
How are they? What? I could have sworn you were... do you believe in anything? What the fuck are you doing on this show?
Do you believe in
the power of love?
Too bad you don't find that in the woods.
I mean, you could, I guess.
Man.
Oh. And with that, skeptical eye for the paranormal guys.
We have determined that the giant of Kandahar was not maimed by the military.
Like
or did it exist?
no giants were harmed in the
In the
making
making of this podcast. Correct.